My wife, Julia, told me she wished she'd married someone else. My name is Eric Sanders, and I'm 37 years old. That drunken confession didn't break me. It forged me into something colder, sharper. I'd spent 10 years believing marriage vows meant something, that loyalty was sacred. My jaw clenched as I watched her mascara-streaked face that night, and I realized I'd been married to a stranger. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I transformed that pain into precision, systematically exposing every lie she'd built our marriage on. When someone shows you who they truly are, believe them the first time. And remember, regret always comes too late for those who take good people for granted. This is the story of how I reclaimed my dignity and found something better than what I lost. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. It was a Friday evening, exactly 10 years after I'd proposed to Julia at Salvatore's. I'd left the office at 4 instead of my usual 7, stopping to pick up a bouquet of white roses, her favorite, or at least what I'd thought was her favorite back then. The drive home felt lighter than usual. I remembered our first anniversary, how we'd laughed over cheap wine and takeout because we couldn't afford anything fancier. The memory tasted bitter now, knowing what I was about to discover. I pushed open the front door, calling out, "Jules, I'm home early." No answer. The living room was dim except for the blue glow of her phone screen. Julia sat curled on the couch, a half-empty bottle of Cabernet on the coffee table. Her mascara had streaked down her cheeks in dark rivers, and she didn't even glance up when I walked in. "Hey," I said, setting the roses down. "I made reservations at Salvatore's for 7. Thought we could celebrate. Look at him." Her voice came out thick, slurred. She thrust her phone toward me without looking away from it. "Todd has everything." I stepped closer and saw the Facebook photos. Some guy on a white sand beach, his arm around a smiling brunette. Todd Wilson, Julia's high school boyfriend, the one she'd mentioned maybe 3 times in our entire marriage. "Julia, maybe you should put the phone away." I kept my voice gentle, even though my chest had started to tighten. "Let's get ready for dinner." "You know what?" She looked up at me, and her eyes blazed with something ugly. "I should have picked him. I wish I had married Todd instead of settling for you." The room went silent. My hands went cold. You ever have one of those moments where time just stops? Where a single sentence rewrites your entire history? I didn't yell. I didn't grab the phone and throw it. Instead, something icy settled over me, sharp and clear. "Is that right?" My voice came out calm, almost conversational. "You settled for our life together? Our home? The vacations? The career I supported you through?" Julia's eyes widened, like she was just now realizing what she'd said. I moved closer, towering over her. "You settled for me busting my ass 60 hours a week at the firm so you could pursue your painting hobby without worrying about money. You settled for the man who chose you every single morning for 10 years? Eric, I didn't mean—" She scrambled to sit up straighter, wine sloshing in her glass. "No, Julia, you meant exactly what you said." I leaned down until we were eye level, and now I know exactly where I stand. Let me make something crystal clear. I never settled for you. I chose you every single day. "It's the wine talking, baby. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Save it." I straightened up, looking down at her crumpled form. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in our bedroom, my bedroom now, really, staring at the ceiling while Julia sobbed in the guest room down the hall. The sound cut through the walls, raw and desperate, but I felt nothing. My chest stayed cold, my mind clear. Around midnight, I pulled out my phone and started searching. Best divorce attorney near me. Aggressive divorce lawyer. How to protect assets in divorce. One name kept appearing. Diane Hernandez. The reviews called her the Terminator. One husband wrote, "She destroyed my ex-wife's case in 45 minutes. Worth every penny." Another said, "If you want someone who doesn't mess around, Hernandez is your weapon." I booked a consultation for Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. But as I set the phone down, reality hit me. I didn't actually know what I was dealing with. Julia's drunk confession? That wasn't grounds for much in a no-fault state. I needed information, evidence, something concrete. The guest room went quiet around 2 in the morning. I still didn't sleep. Saturday morning came with the smell of bacon. I walked downstairs and found Julia at the stove, her eyes red and swollen. She'd put on makeup to cover the damage, but I could see through it. She smiled when she saw me, nervous and tentative. "Hey, baby, I made your favorite. Bacon, scrambled eggs, wheat toast." Her voice cracked. "Eric, about last night. I was so drunk. I didn't mean any of it. I love you. I've always loved you." I watched her plate the food with shaking hands. "It's okay," I said, and kissed her forehead. We all say stupid things when we drink too much. Her whole body sagged with relief. "Really? You forgive me?" "Of course." I sat down at the table. 10 years doesn't disappear because of one bad night. She practically threw herself at me, wrapping her arms around my shoulders. "Thank you. God, thank you. I'll make it up to you, I promise." I ate breakfast while she chattered about taking a weekend trip together, maybe going back to that bed and breakfast in Vermont where we'd honeymooned. I nodded and smiled and said all the right things. Then I excused myself to grab my laptop from the home office. "Just need to check one work email," I told her. Instead, I logged into our joint savings account. The balance looked normal at first glance, about $42,000. But when I pulled up the transaction history, my jaw tightened. 5 transfers over the past 6 months, each one between $3,000 and $5,000, all going to an account I didn't recognize. The routing number didn't match any bank I'd ever heard of. I scrolled back further. The transfers had started in March, 8 months ago. My hands stayed steady as I screenshot everything and emailed it to myself. "Everything okay?" Julia called from the kitchen. "Yeah, just a client thing." I closed the laptop and returned to the table. "Hey, I need to run into the office for a few hours. Williams needs some projections by Monday." Julia's face fell. "On Saturday?" "I know. I'm sorry." I kissed her goodbye at the door, tasting her tears on my lips. "I'll be back by lunch. Maybe we can catch a movie this afternoon?" She brightened. "I'd love that." Diane Hernandez's office sat in a sleek downtown building. I'd told myself I was just gathering information, but the moment I walked into that conference room, I knew I was past the point of no return. Diane was maybe 5'2", but she commanded the room like a general. Her black pantsuit was immaculate, her handshake firm. "Mr. Sanders," she gestured to a chair. "You mentioned on the phone that you're considering divorce proceedings. My wife told me she wished she'd married someone else." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. "Then I found these transfers." Diane studied the images, her expression unreadable. She pulled out a legal pad and started writing. "These transfers," she said slowly, "suggest your wife has been preparing an exit strategy for at least 6 months, possibly longer." My stomach dropped, even though I'd already known. Hearing it out loud made it real. "Can she take half of everything?" I asked. "Depends on several factors." Diane tapped her pen against the pad. "How much do you earn versus her? What assets are in whose name? Any prenuptial agreement? I make about $220 a year. She doesn't work, pursues art as a hobby. No prenup. Everything's joint." Diane's mouth tightened. "Then yes, theoretically she could walk away with half, unless we can prove she's been hiding assets or planning financial misconduct." I leaned forward. "How do I protect myself from someone who's already betraying me?" Diane gave me a checklist before I left her office. "Document everything. Financial records, communications, suspicious behavior." Build an airtight case before making any moves. So that's exactly what I did. The next week, I became someone I didn't recognize. I kissed Julia goodbye every morning, told her I loved her, and then spent my lunch breaks combing through our financial records like a forensic accountant. Tuesday afternoon, I found it. A secondary checking account under Julia's maiden name, Julia Brennan. The account had been opened 14 months ago, right around the time we'd celebrated our 9th anniversary with that trip to Napa Valley. The balance sat at $47,812. I sat in my car outside the office, staring at my phone screen. She'd been siphoning money from our joint accounts for over a year, planning her escape while I worked 60-hour weeks to support us both. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. Wednesday, Julia left for her weekly art class at the community center. She'd been going every week for 3 years, or so she said. Now I wondered if she'd been going at all. I waited 15 minutes after she left, then went upstairs to her studio. Her laptop sat on the cluttered desk, surrounded by half-finished canvases and tubes of acrylic paint. Usually it was password-protected, but she must have been in a hurry. The screen was still lit. Facebook Messenger was open. I pulled out my phone and started photographing the screen. Her search history loaded, and my stomach turned. Apartments for rent in Charlotte, NC. Moving companies, Charlotte to here. Best neighborhoods, Charlotte singles. Charlotte cost of living. Charlotte, where Todd Wilson lived. I scrolled further. Zillow listings, Craigslist ads. She'd saved at least a dozen one-bedroom apartments in her favorites. I took photos of everything, then carefully closed the browser tabs in reverse order. I repositioned the laptop exactly as I'd found it, down to the angle of the screen. My hands were steady. My breathing was controlled. But inside, something cold and sharp was taking shape. That evening, I pulled up Todd Wilson's Facebook profile on my own phone. Public profile. The guy was an idiot. Worked in pharmaceutical sales, recently promoted to regional manager. Divorced from Macy Wilson 6 months ago, just like Diane had suggested I research. I clicked through his photos. Generic vacation shots, gym selfies, pictures with colleagues at corporate events. Then I found his wedding photos from 7 years ago. Macy Wilson was beautiful in that natural, unpretentious way. Dark hair, genuine smile, none of Julia's calculated posing. The photos showed a couple who actually looked happy. I cross-referenced the divorce timeline. Todd and Macy had separated in March, the same month Julia started her secret transfers. My jaw clenched. I opened Instagram. Julia's account was private, but Todd's wasn't. I scrolled back through his posts, looking for anything that connected them. Nothing obvious. Then I noticed something in the comments. Starting last December, Julia had started liking and commenting on almost every single one of his posts. Heart emojis. Looking great. Wish I was there. Macy had stopped commenting around February. The pattern was obvious once you knew to look for it. Thursday night, I made dinner. Pasta carbonara, Julia's favorite. She was unusually chatty, talking about a new painting series she wanted to start. Something about new beginnings and fresh perspectives. I let her talk. Then, as I poured her wine, I said casually, "Hey, I noticed something weird on the browser history the other day. Were you looking at apartments in Charlotte?" Julia's hand froze halfway to her glass. Just for a second. Then she laughed, reaching for the wine. "Oh, that?" She waved dismissively. "I've been thinking about doing a series on Southern architecture. Charlotte has some beautiful historic neighborhoods. I was just gathering inspiration." The lie came so smoothly, so practiced. "Are you sure?" I kept my voice gentle, concerned. "After what you said last week, I'm just worried about you, about your mental state." Her eyes filled with tears on cue. "Eric, I told you. That was the wine talking. I'm fine. I promise." I've just been feeling creatively stuck, that's all. I reached across the table and took her hand. Okay, I believe you. I just want to make sure you're happy. She squeezed my fingers. I am. I'm so happy. And I'm so sorry for scaring you. Friday, while Julia was supposedly at her therapist appointment, I created a dummy Instagram account. No profile picture, no followers, generic username. Then I sent Macy Wilson a direct message. You don't know me, but I think we need to talk about Julia and Todd. 20 minutes later, my phone pinged. Who is this? Someone who just found out his wife has been planning to leave him for your ex-husband. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Meet me tomorrow. Starbucks on Maple Street, 10 a.m. Saturday morning, I told Julia I had a client meet. She barely looked up from her easel. Bring back bagels? She called as I left. Sure thing, babe. I drove to Maple Street and found Macy Wilson already seated by the window. She looked up when I walked in, and something passed between us. Recognition of shared betrayal. Before I could sit down, my phone buzzed. A text from Julia. Hope your meeting goes well. Love you. I turned the phone face down and met Macy's eyes. She slid her own phone across the table. I think you should see this. The screen showed a text thread between Todd and Julia. Months of messages. My vision tunneled as I read the most recent exchange. Julia, I can't wait much longer. I'm dying here. Todd, just a few more months. Once you've got your half, we can finally be together. Our second chance at love, just like we always dreamed. The coffee shop sounds faded to white noise. They'd been planning this together for months, maybe longer. I looked up from Macy's phone, my hands steady even though my pulse hammered against my ribs. How long? Since December. Macy slid into the chair across from me. Todd started acting different after his high school reunion last November. Distant, secretive. Then the late-night texting started. I handed her phone back. Julia went to that reunion. I know. Her voice was quiet, but there was steel underneath. I saw the photos. The two of them looked like teenagers again, all dreamy-eyed and nostalgic. When I asked Todd about it, he said I was being paranoid. Yeah, I'd heard that one before. When did you find out for sure? February. I checked his phone while he was in the shower. She pulled up another screenshot. This was from your wife. Don't let fear keep you trapped. We deserve our happiness. We deserve each other. My throat tightened. That's exactly what Julia told me last week. That she wished she hadn't settled. Todd said the same thing. Macy's laugh was bitter. Apparently, we were both just placeholder spouses until they could find their way back to their true love. I met with Diane Hernandez again on Monday. This time I brought printed copies of everything. Julia's secret account statements, her apartment searches, screenshots of her Instagram comments on Todd's posts. Diane flipped through the pages, her expression unreadable. She wore a charcoal suit today, hair pulled back tight. When she finished, she looked up. Your wife has been planning this for at least 6 months, probably longer. I know. The good news is, she's been sloppy. These transfers are from joint accounts. Legally, that money is half yours. Diane tapped one particular statement. She withdrew $5,000 in cash 3 weeks ago. Do you know what for? I shook my head. Find out. Cash withdrawals of that size usually mean she's hiding something that can't be traced electronically. What do I do now? Diane leaned forward. You document everything. Every lie. Every unusual behavior. Every penny that moves. You keep playing the loving husband while we build an airtight case. And when we're ready, she snapped the folder shut. We freeze the accounts before she can take another dime. How long? A month, maybe 2. Can you hold out that long? I thought about Julia's tears at dinner. Her perfect lies. Yeah, I said. I can do that. Macy and I started meeting twice a week. Officially, I was having coffee with a potential client. She worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company, legitimate enough that Julia never questioned it. We compared notes like detectives working a case. Todd's getting a promotion next month, Macy told me during our third meeting. Director level, big raise. Let me guess, he'll finally have the financial stability to support Julia's art career. Probably. She stirred her latte. He always said I was too focused on my own career, that I didn't understand his need for a supportive partner. I'd heard similar complaints from Julia, how I worked too much, how I didn't appreciate her creative spirit. Funny how they painted us as the villains in their love story. I found something else, I said, pulling out my phone. Julia's been taking extended lunch breaks, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. She claims she's meeting gallery owners. Let me guess, no new shows booked? None, but I checked our cell phone records. I showed her the data usage spikes. Every single lunch break, she's burning through data. Video calls, most likely. Macy's jaw tightened. Todd's lunch breaks have gotten longer, too. His assistant mentioned it last month when I stopped by to pick up some of my stuff. We sat in silence for a moment, letting the pieces fall into place. Finally, Macy spoke. What if we worked together? Really worked together? They've been coordinating their exit strategy. Why shouldn't we coordinate our response? I met her eyes. No tears, no hysteria, just cold determination that matched my own. What did you have in mind? She smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. I think it's time we showed them what happens when you underestimate the people you betrayed. Over the next 2 weeks, Macy and I fell into a rhythm. Tuesday and Thursday mornings, we met at a coffee shop halfway between our offices. To anyone watching, we looked like business associates discussing contracts. The truth was far more strategic. Todd's been working late every night this week, Macy said, sliding her phone across the table. Look at his calendar. I scanned the entries. Executive meetings, strategy sessions, dinner with the VP of operations. He's positioning himself, I said, making sure that promotion sticks. Director of Strategic Development, $150,000 salary, plus bonuses. Macy's voice was flat. Julia must be thrilled. I'd seen the change in Julia. She'd been practically glowing the past few days, humming while she painted, acting like our anniversary fight had never happened, because in her mind, it probably didn't matter anymore. She had her exit plan in place. I made some calls, I told Macy. Remember how I mentioned I have connections in finance? She leaned forward. Todd's company, Meridian Capital Group. They're under review by the state regulators for some questionable investment practices. Nothing public yet, but it's coming. What kind of practices? The kind that make HR very nervous about who's getting promoted into leadership positions. I sipped my coffee. I talked to Richard Brennan, a compliance officer I know from my MBA program. He works for a competing firm. Apparently, Todd's promotion raised some eyebrows internally. Wrong department. Wrong experience level. How wrong? The kind of wrong that makes people wonder who he knows and what favors got called in. Macy's eyes lit up. Can you find out more? Already working on it. I pulled up an email on my phone. Richard's putting me in touch with someone who left Meridian last month. Whistleblower type. Says there's documentation of ethical violations that got swept under the rug. Eric. Macy's hand touched mine briefly. This is exactly what we need. The contact was brief, professional, but I felt it. That shared understanding between two people who'd been broken by the same kind of betrayal. You know what's strange? I wasn't supposed to find comfort in this. But sitting across from Macy, comparing notes like war strategists, I felt more understood than I had in years of marriage to Julia. The evidence kept accumulating. Julia had gotten careless, or maybe she just didn't think I cared enough to notice anymore. Wednesday evening, she left our shared iPad on the kitchen counter while she showered. I picked it up, and there it was. iMessage open, conversation with Todd Wilson right there on the screen. I can't stop thinking about you. Soon, babe. Just a few more weeks, and we can be together for real. I'm tired of pretending with Eric. He's so clueless. My hands didn't shake. They should have, but they didn't. I took screenshots methodically, emailing them to my private account, then cleared the notification. By the time Julia came downstairs, hair wet and smelling like lavender shampoo, the iPad was exactly where she'd left it. "What do you want for dinner?" she asked, kissing my cheek. I could still smell her shampoo, the same one she'd used for our entire marriage. That scent used to mean home, comfort, love. Now, it just smelled like lies. "Whatever you're in the mood for," I said. Friday night, we were watching television. Some romantic comedy Julia had picked. She was curled against my side like nothing had changed, like she hadn't called our marriage a mistake 2 weeks ago. "Eric," she said, during a commercial break, "can I ask you something?" "Sure. You haven't brought up the anniversary." "What I said." She looked up at me. "Why?" I kept my expression neutral. "What's there to say? You were drunk." "People say stupid things when they're drunk. So you forgive me?" I didn't say that. Her body tensed against mine. "Then what?" "I'm processing," I said simply. 10 years of marriage doesn't unravel because of one drunken comment. I'm just thinking about what it all means. She relaxed slightly. Probably thought I was being the understanding husband she could manipulate. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Once, twice. Julia grabbed for it, but I was closer. The screen lit up with a text notification. "Todd Wilson. I've never stopped loving you. We deserve our second chance." Julia's face went white. I held the phone, reading those words again while she sat frozen beside me, and I felt absolutely nothing except cold, clear certainty. Everything was about to change. I held Julia's phone between us, Todd's message glowing on the screen like a confession. "Eric, She reached for it, but I pulled back. "Don't." My voice came out flat. "Just don't." She stood up, arms wrapped around herself. "It's not what you think." "Really?" I set the phone down carefully. "Because what I think is that you've been planning to leave me for Todd Wilson. What I think is that our entire marriage has been a lie. You're overreacting." I didn't respond, just looked at her until she had to look away. That's when I knew she'd already left me in her heart. The woman I married wouldn't have been able to meet my eyes with that kind of guilt. Over the next week, Julia became a stranger in our home. She password-protected her laptop, her phone, even changed the PIN on her iPad, started closing doors when she took calls, claiming it was her art dealer. We both know I didn't believe her. Thursday evening, I came home to find Julia in our bedroom, packing a small overnight bag. Clothes, toiletries, her good jewelry. "Going somewhere?" I asked from the doorway. She jumped, then recovered. "Oh, I meant to tell you. Vilma asked me to visit this weekend. She's been having a rough time lately." "Vilma?" "My sister." She zipped the bag. "Just 2 days. I'll be back Sunday night." I leaned against the doorframe. "That's nice of you." "Yeah, well, family, you know." "Family. Right." I called Vilma that night after Julia went to bed. We'd always gotten along well enough. She was the practical sister, the one who'd warned Julia about making impulsive decisions. "Eric, is everything okay?" "I hope so." "Julia said she's visiting you this weekend?" Silence on the other end. Then, "She's what?" "Coming to stay with you. Said you'd been having a rough time." "Eric, I haven't talked to Julia in 3 weeks. We had a fight about her marriage, actually. I told her she was being stupid and selfish." My chest tightened. "I see. Where's she really going?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." I paused. "Thank you, Vilma." "Eric, if she's doing what I think she's doing, I know. And I'm handling it." Friday morning, I followed Julia's car from our house to the airport. Kept 3 cars back, the way they do in movies. Felt ridiculous doing it. But when I saw her pull into the terminal parking garage, That feeling evaporated. I parked on a different level, then made my way to the departures area. Found a spot near a coffee kiosk where I could watch the security checkpoint. Julia appeared 15 minutes later, but she wasn't alone. Todd Wilson walked beside her, pulling his own suitcase, hand on the small of her back like he owned her. They stopped before security. Julia looked up at him with an expression I recognized, the one I thought she'd saved for me. Then Todd pulled her close, kissing her with the kind of passion that made other travelers look away. I took photos, 10, maybe 12, each one clearer than the last. My hands stayed steady the whole time. Monday morning, I made a phone call to Meridian Capital Group's ethics hotline. Anonymous tip line, they called it. I have concerns about a recent promotion, I said. Todd Wilson, promoted to senior portfolio manager. I believe there may be conflicts of interest that weren't properly disclosed. The woman on the other end took notes. Professional, detached. What kind of conflict? Personal relationships that could compromise professional judgment. I understand his ex-wife works in a related industry, and he's currently involved with someone married to a competitor's executive. All true, technically. Just arranged in a way that would trigger an investigation. Tuesday, I transferred everything Diane had advised me to move. IRAs, investment accounts, anything that could be legally separated from joint assets. By Wednesday afternoon, I'd protected nearly 70% of my personal wealth. Sunday night, I pulled into our driveway at 8:30. Julia's car was already there, but the house was dark except for the kitchen light. I found the divorce papers on the counter. Official letterhead, legal language, Julia's signature already in place. She was sitting at the kitchen table, dressed like she was going to a business meeting. Hair perfect, makeup done, back straight. "We need to talk," she said. I picked up the papers. "I can see that. I'm leaving, Eric. I'm taking half of everything we've built, and I'm starting a new life with Todd. Is that right?" The papers spell everything out. My lawyer says it's fair, standard division of marital assets. She stood up. "I'll be staying in a hotel tonight. I'll send movers for my things next week." I set the papers down slowly. Let the silence stretch out. Julia's composure cracked slightly. "Aren't you going to say anything?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman I'd loved for 10 years. This stranger who'd been planning my betrayal while sleeping in my bed. "You really think I didn't see this coming?" Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" I walked to my briefcase, pulled out the folder I'd prepared, dropped it on the table in front of her. "Open it." Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. Bank statements showing every transfer to her secret account. Screenshots of her messages with Todd, printed in chronological order. Photos from the airport. Her and Todd. That kiss. The way she looked at him. How did you? "You got sloppy, Joe. Left your laptop open. Used our shared iPad. And Vilma? She doesn't lie for you." She stumbled back against the counter. "You've been spying on me?" "No. I've been documenting your betrayal." I stayed calm, let each word land. "You see, while you were planning your exit strategy, I was planning mine. The difference is, mine actually worked. Eric, listen to me. Diane Hernandez filed our divorce papers 3 days ago. Real ones, not whatever theatrical garbage your lawyer put together. All joint assets are frozen as of Friday morning. That secret account you've been building? My attorney already flagged it as marital property concealment." Julia's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "You wanted half of everything we built? You'll be lucky to get 20% after the judge sees how you've been hiding money and planning to flee with it. You can't do this." "I already did." My phone buzzed. Macy's name appeared on the screen. "Excuse me," I said, answering it right there in front of Julia. "Hey, Macy." "Eric, it's done. Todd just called me, completely panicking. His company's putting his promotion under formal review. Something about anonymous ethics complaints and undisclosed conflicts of interest. Thanks for letting me know. He asked if I filed the complaint. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about. She paused. He sounded terrified. Good. I ended the call. Julia was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Who was that? Macy Wilson, Todd's ex-wife. She's been very helpful these past few weeks. You've been talking to her? Julia's voice went shrill. You've been conspiring with that woman against us? Against you? No, Julia. Against the two people who destroyed our marriages while pretending to care about us? Absolutely. Julia's phone lit up on the counter. Todd's face filled the screen. Some sunset photo she'd saved as his contact picture. She grabbed it. Todd! What's wrong? I couldn't hear his words, but I could see her face change. The color drained from her cheeks. Her eyes widened. They can't do that. You just got promoted. She listened, hand trembling. What do you mean you can't see me anymore? We had plans. We were going to… Her voice broke. Todd, please, don't do this. Whatever he said next made her sink into a chair. I understand, she whispered. Then louder. No, I understand perfectly. Your career matters more than I do. It always did. She ended the call, sat there staring at nothing. Turns out your first love isn't quite the risk-taker you remembered, I said. Julia looked up at me, mascara starting to run. Eric, please, I made a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. She stood, reaching for me. It was just a midlife crisis or something. I got scared about getting older, about our life becoming routine. But I love you. I've always loved you. I stepped back. Don't. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, start over, forget any of this happened. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, Julia. Eric, you didn't just sleep with someone else. You didn't just have a moment of weakness. I kept my voice level, cold. You planned this for months. You hid money. You encouraged a married man to leave his wife. You lied to me every single day while plotting your escape. Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. She collapsed back into the chair, sobbing. I felt nothing. You have until morning to pack your essential belongings and leave. Diane already secured the house in the filing. It's mine. Take whatever clothes and personal items you need. Everything else gets divided according to what the court decides. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. I picked up her divorce papers, ripped them in half. But wherever it is, it won't be with Todd, and it won't be with my money. Julia arrived at 9 the next morning with her sister Vilma. I watched from the living room window as they made 3 trips to Vilma's SUV, loading suitcases and boxes of personal belongings. I stayed inside. Didn't help. Didn't acknowledge them. Vilma glanced at the house a few times, her expression unreadable. She'd always been the more grounded sister, the one who called Julia out when she got too wrapped up in her own drama. I wondered what Vilma thought of all this. The 3rd trip, Julia hesitated at the door. She knocked. I didn't answer. She tried the handle. Locked, of course. She'd turned in her key before leaving last night. Eric, please! Her voice came through the wood. Can we just talk for 5 minutes? I walked away from the door, went to the kitchen, made coffee while she knocked again. Eventually, the knocking stopped. The SUV pulled away. 2 hours later, I had a locksmith changing every lock in the house. Fresh deadbolt, new garage codes, everything. Cost me $400. Worth every penny. My phone rang while the locksmith was finishing up. Unknown number. Hello? You son of a… Todd's voice exploded through the speaker. You know what you did. You sabotaged me. You went after my job because you couldn't handle losing Julia. I thanked the locksmith, handed him a cash tip, and waited until he was out the door before responding. Actions have consequences, Todd. That's rich. Coming from you. Julia told me everything about your controlling behavior, how you manipulated her. Stop talking. Excuse me? You're not in a position to make accusations. I kept my voice level. I didn't sabotage anything. Your company reviewed your promotion and found ethical concerns. That's on you, not me. Bull. You pursued a married woman while you were married yourself. You conspired with someone else's wife to dismantle two households. And you did it all while climbing the corporate ladder. I paused. Companies tend to notice when their executives demonstrate questionable judgment in their personal lives. It raises questions about their professional judgment, too. Silence on the line. Here's some free advice, Todd. Focus on saving whatever's left of your career instead of stealing another man's wife. You might actually keep your job if you show some maturity. She loves me, he said, but the conviction was gone from his voice. Then I'm sure you'll be very happy together when you're both unemployed and broke. I ended the call. Blocked his number. That evening, I met Macy at a quiet wine bar downtown. She looked tired but somehow lighter than before, like she'd been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. Todd called me too, she said, after ordering a glass of Pinot. Tried to blame me for ruining his life. How'd that go? I told him to grow up and hung up. She smiled. Felt pretty good, actually. We talked for 2 hours, shared stories about our marriages, the warning signs we'd missed, the lies we'd believed. I'd never had these kinds of conversations with Julia. Never this honest, this raw. Macy understood something Julia never had. That trust, once broken, doesn't just glue itself back together. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than I expected. I swirled my bourbon. It's weird. I should be devastated. 10 years? Gone? But mostly I just feel free. I know exactly what you mean. Our eyes met across the table. Something shifted. Over the following weeks, Macy and I kept meeting. Coffee dates turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long walks through the park where I used to jog alone every morning. She made me laugh. Really laugh. The kind I hadn't done in years. I caught myself thinking about her when we weren't together. 3 weeks after Julia moved out, Diane called with an update. The judge reviewed the asset disclosure, she said. Julia's attorney tried to hide the secret account, but we caught it. The court's viewing it as attempted concealment of marital property. What does that mean? It means she gets less. Substantially less. The judge doesn't look kindly on spouses who lie during divorce proceedings. I closed my eyes. Good. We're looking at 60-40 split in your favor, possibly better. Plus, you keep the house. I'm pushing for her to cover her own legal fees, given the bad faith. Thanks, Diane. You made my job easy by documenting everything. Most clients don't have your foresight. That same evening, an email notification popped up on my phone. Julia's name made my chest tighten. Subject: Please read this. I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Eric, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you. But I need you to know that everything fell apart. Todd lost his promotion. He told me we can't see each other anymore because his company is watching him. He said, I'm too much of a liability. After everything I gave up for him. I'm staying at Vilma's, sleeping on her couch. I don't have a job. I don't have savings. I don't have anything. Todd won't return my calls. I have no one. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I destroyed us. But please, Eric, please consider giving me another chance. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I see that now. Julia, I read it twice. Then I archived it without responding. 3 months later, I sat in a conference room while Diane slid the final decree across the polished table. It's done, she said. Julia's signature looked shaky next to mine. I wondered if her hand had trembled when she signed, or if she'd just stopped caring. 60-40 split. The house was mine. Most of our investments stayed with me. She got her freedom and a settlement that wouldn't last long if she kept living the way she used to. Congratulations, Diane said. You handled this better than most." I didn't feel like celebrating. I felt relieved. Outside, Macy was waiting in her car. She smiled when I climbed in. "How'd it go?" "It's final." I buckled my seatbelt. "I'm officially a free man." She squeezed my hand. We'd been seeing each other for 2 months now. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Just two people who understood what betrayal felt like and refused to repeat those patterns. "Dinner?" she asked. "Yeah, somewhere nice." Word spread fast in our social circles. Within a week, 3 different friends reached out with updates about Julia. She'd moved from Vilma's couch to a studio apartment in the bad part of town. Her painting supplies sat untouched in boxes because she couldn't afford proper workspace. The art show she'd been planning fell through when her sponsor pulled out. "She's asking everyone if they know of job openings," my friend Marcus told me over lunch. "Says she needs something stable." I didn't take pleasure in her struggle, but I didn't feel guilty either. She'd made her choices. This was the consequence. Macy and I made it official that spring. No grand announcement, just a mutual understanding that we weren't seeing other people and didn't want to. She moved some things into my place gradually. A toothbrush, then clothes, then books that lined up next to mine on the shelf. One morning I woke up and found her making coffee in my kitchen, wearing one of my old college t-shirts, and I thought, this is what partnership looks like. Not fantasy, not performance, just real. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, handwritten, Julia's looping cursive on cream-colored stationery. "Eric, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. But I need you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my entire life. Todd was a fantasy. You were real. You were everything I needed, and I threw it away. I think about you every day, about our life together, about how I destroyed the best thing I ever had. If there's any chance at all, that you'd consider trying again, I would spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I'm so sorry, Eric. I'm so deeply, truly sorry. Julia." I read it once. Then I folded it back into the envelope and dropped it in my desk drawer without responding. Macy found me staring out the window a few minutes later. "Everything okay?" Julia sent a letter. "Wants another chance." Her face tightened. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I'm not going to." I turned to face her. "That part of my life is over." She relaxed. "Good." Summer arrived with perfect weather. Macy suggested a weekend getaway, and I remembered those Facebook photos. Todd's beach house, the ones Julia had obsessed over. I found the listing online. It was a vacation rental. "Let's do it," I said. We spent 3 days there, walked the beach at sunrise, ate seafood at the local spots Todd had probably taken Julia to in his fantasy, made love in the master bedroom with ocean views. It felt like reclaiming something, proving that Julia's wish had been pointless, because this was better than anything she'd imagined. 6 months after the divorce, I put the house on the market. Too many memories, too many ghosts. Macy and I found a place together. Smaller, modern. Ours from the beginning. We picked out furniture together, argued about paint colors, built something new. She moved in on a Saturday. Her last box came through the door, and I realized I'd never been happier. 1 year to the day after my divorce, I took Macy to the deck of our new home. Sunset was painting the sky orange and pink. "I need to ask you something," I said. She turned, and the light caught her eyes. I pulled the ring from my pocket. Small diamond, simple band. Nothing like the ostentatious piece I'd given Julia. "Macy Wilson, will you marry me?" Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." I slid the ring onto her finger. Sometimes losing someone who doesn't value you is the first step toward finding someone who will. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.